Your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I shall not stumble. You make firm my steps, for you hold me in your hand. My strength is renewed as I walk in the power of your name. You will praise me on wings of eagle. As I soar, I will soar with you. Fear not Israel, fear not Israel. Elohim is with you. Your word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. I shall not stumble. You make firm my steps, for you hold me in your hand. My strength is renewed as I walk in the power of your name. And you will raise me upon wings of eagle. As I soar, I will soar with you. Fear not Israel, fear not Israel. Elohim is with you. And you will praise him on wings of eagle. And as I soar, I will soar. Fear not Israel, fear not Israel. Elohim is with you. Fear not Israel, 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 fear not Israel. Elohim is with you. Elohim is with you.
Hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah our Elohim. Yahuwah is one. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your head, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And ye shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Hallelujah. Shabbat shalom, everybody. At least almost here where I'm at. Still daylight out, but it's coming. The day of rest, Yahuwah's rest, a delightful day of delight and celebration to Yahuwah. All righty. I guess first of all, I have an announcement to make. Let me get over here to the comment section. All righty. So Zoom at noon on NatsRamLife.com is going to be held tomorrow morning, or tomorrow, I should say, afternoon at noon, rather than on NatsRamLife.com website. It will start at noon Eastern Standard Time, and we'll continue on with our Acts study. But then the following week, it'll be back on NatsRamLife.com, but I won't be there. Lou White's going to take it and do that Zoom at noon, and I'm not sure what the subject's going to be. But as far as I know, it's not going to be a continuation of Acts. He's going to talk about something else, as far as I know. Okay, so anyway, everybody that is a member of NatsRamLife.com, don't forget, tomorrow Zoom at noon will be here on this channel, the same time, at noon Eastern Standard Time. If you're not a member of NatsRam.com, you're still welcome to come, and maybe a good chance for you to get an understanding of what we do, a little bit of what we do on NatsRamLife.com as a community, and all will be welcome here. Now, it's going to be the same as it is on YouTube, has some restrictions, so we're only going to be able to invite 10 guests into the broadcast, and everybody else will just stack up into the the chat room like we do right now, like we do normally here on YouTube. And so it's going to be just a little bit different, but I think we'll get through it, and it should be interesting. So take advantage, a great opportunity to meet the community, NetSarim Life community, and the members on there, and you get a little peek into it and see maybe you want to come in and join too and study with us at Zoom at noon every Shabbat. You do it every Shabbat. It's really a lot of fun. You get a lot more benefits and features other than just the Zoom at noon. So it's like way worth the $25 fee to join. And we got to keep it running, and it's growing, and it's a great place to attend and be and participate in. Okay, so that's the announcement, and let me greet a few people, and then we'll get started here. Diane, glad you're here. Sister Peggy, glad you're here. Joseph, glad you're here. Lateran, glad you're here. Dave, glad you're here. Phyllis and Lou, glad you're here. Okay, so let's get started. Tonight study is going to be basically about current events that are basically being prophecy fulfillment in our time. And it just occurred to me with the things that we see going on right now with our economy and our society, how well, it really fits together with what's spoken about in Luke 21 and Matthew 24. And there's things that has happened recently that has even cleared the vision up even more. It's even becoming easier to see now. It's really unfolding right in front of our eyeballs. So I thought we'd do a little catch up on that this evening and talk about those things and read about them in Scripture. But basically, it's like we all learned this in school, right? It's called Economics 101. At least I think most of us did anyway. And it has to do with supply and demand. It's very simple concept. If there's a lot of supply and nobody wanting to buy it, they're overstocked, the price drops on the product. If there's a lower supply and a lot of people's wanting it, and there's not enough of it, the price goes up. It's pretty simple, right? Supply and demand. I'm sure we all remember that from school. So basically then, if we take like a commodity of sorts, we just pick corn. So we take the commodity corn, and let's just say there's a couple year drought and the corn's not doing too good. So supply dwindles away. It isn't replenished because of the drought. And so corn becomes a scarcity, right? A scarce commodity. Okay, so what happens? Well, generally, the price of corn is going to rise, right? It's going to look like inflation on corn, right? But the other products, the prices of the other products that are well supplied and doing good, they are not affected. The prices stay roughly the same. Could even drop a little bit in the commodity market, right? So it just affects corn prices. Everything else doing okay. Prices stay the same. Could drop a little bit even, right? So this is Economics 101. But what's going on now, right now, as we speak? The prices on everything, in this case, the price on everything is going up. Everything's going up. So does this mean that there's a less supply of everything? Probably not. Okay, what it means is, since everything is rising and we're seeing this inflation across the board, it probably means there's some kind of stratagem or collaboration effort going on to hurt the world's economy and bring the societies to their knees. So if this is true, then who in the world would be doing such a thing? Well, it's rather well known that BRICS is now considered to be the main global supplier of products and goods, ranging anywhere from textile to, high tech, and everything in between. This also seems to be another thing that's going on here, like under the radar that most people aren't really seeing, is that there may be, and maybe been happening for a while now, an effort to overthrow the United States as as being the economic powerhouse and to take over. And by doing this, there is a subtle wars, I should say, of sorts going on under the radar that most people aren't even realizing. Some are, most aren't. This is the economical war. This is a biological war. This is a cyber war and a social war, trying to divide sovereign nations against each other. Yeah. How? Prejudiced. Race against race, men against women, women against men, family members against family members, all kinds of ways they're dividing in order to conquer. So all this is taking place now in the BRICS, or the emerging market suppliers, the main countries that are giving us more of the supplies that we need, are in kind of cahoots here about what they're doing. And these BRICS countries, this alliance, consists of Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa at the present moment. And like I said, these countries here are seen as the center of the global power transition is trying to take over as the world currency, which the United States is presently. It's kind of weird too here, before we get into scripture, I just like to say this, that this trade, it seems like, well, maybe that's not true or whatever, but when you start looking at the stats of this thing, it starts becoming more of a reality, really. The trade between Russia, China, India, and Brazil and South Africa has increased dramatically just over the last couple of years. In fact, Russia, China, India, just since the beginning of the Ukrainian war over there with Russia, has increased by 38%. It went from 7 billion to 45 billion in just the first quarter of 2022. Okay, so this comes at a time of escalating tensions with the West, United States, Great Britain, NATO. And it's in another interesting thing that's going on here is that most of us know that there's been, the Holy Roman Empire has been reborn, and it's hidden over there in the European Union. This rebirth of the Holy Roman Empire will probably be led by Germany in future events. It's correlating with Daniel and the book of Revelations. Those are the two big books on prophecy that most all the other prophecies come out of, those two books, Daniel and Revelation. And oddly, this rebirth of the Holy Roman Empire, deity, if you will, or entity, started out with being friends with Russia. But now they are opposed to each other and becoming more opposed as the days go on. And the BRICS is gaining momentum throughout the world with more countries jockeying to join in that economical powerhouse. And then, not to mention the tariffs that President Trump put on China, and China retaliating, has caused a large gap or break in the supply chain as well. Well, they're not just sitting there waiting for the United States to change their minds. Okay, they're getting together with countries like India and Russia and Brazil, South Africa, and others. At this time, the European Union, if you will, or the reborn Holy Roman Empire, has their sights on South America. Don't even make sense, Spanish is the third most popular or common language on the planet. And the religions coincide. Most of South America is Catholic. Most of Europe is Catholic. By far. So you see all these things happening, and we just got to stop and say, is this actual more proof that we are in the end of the latter days? And I'm going to say yes. It was definitely, things are starting to happen the way they're supposed to happen. The kings of the north and the kings of the east will make an alliance. The anti will come out of the Holy Roman Empire, the anti-Mashiach, probably beheaded or come out of Germany more than likely, but he may be a Roman citizen, I don't know. But anyways, there's going to be friction between Russia and China, Japan, India, some other Eastern Asian nations, alliance with the North, which would be Putin up there, Russia. And it seems to me, the more I read scriptures, that these two alliances of the anti-Mashiach and the kings of the north and the kings of the east are going to kind of betray each other, and they're going to want to spread out economically and take over the world in order to control commerce, economical power in the societies. They're going. I think they're both going to be eyeballing North America and South America, without that. So all this is starting to become a reality. So let's go ahead and turn to scriptures and take a look here, and keeping all that in mind, and see what scripture has to say about all this. Yami and Roll, glad you're here. Okay. All right, so we'll start out in Luke 21. BYNV, Luke 21. And looking up, he saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw a certain poor widow putting in 2 mites. And he said, truly I say to you that this poor widow has put in more than all. For all these out of their excess have put in offerings for Elohim, but she out of her poverty has put in all that she had to live on. And as some were speaking about the set apart place, that it was adorned with goodly stones and gifts, he said, These that you see, the Yamam are coming, in which not one stone shall be left upon another that shall not be thrown down. Okay, so interesting. This chapter starts off with an example of rich people giving excess to Elohim, and this poor widow giving all that she had to Elohim. And she was greater than them, even though, they gave a lot of money. She only gave a little bit of change. That's all she had. So who had the most belief here? Of course, the widow did. Interesting, it starts out with that. I won't elaborate too much on that, but I'd like to definitely take a look at this verse 6. These that you see, the Yamam are coming, in which not one stone shall be left upon another that shall not be thrown down. Obviously, this is talking about the second temple, in which it was 70 AD. You can read all about it in this book here. If you don't have it, The War of the Jews, Fabius Josephus, and Antiquities of the Jews too, has a lot of info in it about it. Very interesting stuff. Basically, they tore it all down, and then they even went back. They just totally destroyed the whole city of Jerusalem, really. And then they went back to the Temple Mount. They even got rid of all the stones and everything, and they dug up the foundations, because a lot of the Yehudim were burying treasure in the ground, in and outside the temple, trying to hide it, so they removed even the foundational stones and got rid of them. So this definitely became a fulfilled prophecy here. Now, it doesn't seem to be a fulfilled prophecy, because the people over there right now in Israel believes that the Western Wall is part of the temple that remains there from the second temple. So either they're right or the Bible's right. So Scripture's right. Either Yahusha is telling the truth or they're telling the truth. So who do you think it is? Is Yahusha the one telling us the truth here in Luke 21:6? Or is it the people over in Jerusalem right now telling us the truth? I vote for Yahusha. I say Yahusha's telling the truth and they're lying. That's my vote. I don't know what your vote is. Hi, RT. Glad you're here. So, they actually even got rid of the foundational stones, looking for buried treasure. This was a massacre. This was a genocide. This was a horrible, horrible calamity. Okay. And if you read about it, you'll see what I'm saying. I ain't even going to go through the gruesome details. Very, very horrible stuff. So another thing that we know now is that they found a place in the city of David, just below where that Western Wall is, where they believe the second temple actually stood. And I'm not going to get all into it, but look it up yourself and read about it. It's definitely not where the Dome of the Rock is. It was down below, south of that, southeast of it, in the city of David is where the second temple stood. Okay, so they're over there excavating right now and trying to find more evidence of this. And if they do, you can pretty much bet your bottom dollar that they will start erecting that second temple that's sitting off site right now. Okay, so we know that this prophecy is fulfilled. The people over in Israel right now are in error. It's that Western Wall is part of Fort Antonio, where the legions of Roman soldiers were camping and garrisoned there. Okay. All right. let's continue on now. And they asked him, saying, Teacher, but when shall this be? And what is the sign when this is about to take place? Speaking about destroying the temple, right? And he said, See that you are not led astray. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am, and the time is near. Then do not go after them. But when you hear of fightings and unrests, do not be alarmed, for these have to take place first, but the end is not immediately. All right, so there's going to be fightings and unrests. It's kind of interesting. It almost seems like he's speaking about that the time of the temple was destroyed, right? But don't forget, there can be more insight into a shadow. Something may be just a shadow leading to the reality. So keep that in mind. Then he said to them, Nation shall rise against nation, and reign against reign. So this is interesting, that this nation shall rise against nation and reign against reign. I think in Matthew, it kind of clears that up a little bit more. We're going to look at Matthew too. But this seems to be riots and unrest and fighting among the peoples in the same reign, in the same nation, this reign against reign type thing. But the nations against nations is definitely like Russia fighting with Ukraine right now. Of course, that's been going on for a long time, right? But there's going to be an escalation point that's going to go beyond what really has ever happened before. But this is the beginning of it. So, the part where it says, and there shall be great earthquakes, I looked that up, and it seems to be that in the last century, notice it says great earthquakes. Well, a great earthquake is, I think it has to be above 6 on the scale, above 6 to be a great, or maybe it's even 6.5. So it has to be a large earthquake, a great earthquake, not just little tremors or small earthquakes on the Richter scale, okay? It's got to be great. I think above 6.5, I think is what it is. Anyway, in the last century, there was 70 recorded, but they consider it a great earthquake worldwide. In this century, there's been 265 great earthquakes recorded. So that's like, almost triple. So there is definitely an increase in great earthquakes in various places throughout the world. And and there shall be great earthquakes in various places, and scarcities of food and deadly diseases. Scarcities of food can start out with a low supply and a large demand, right? Which what happens? Prices rise. In this case, price on everything has risen, right? So scarcity of food could be pointing at a coming famine. And if that happens, there's going to be riots and fighting and wars. And people are going to be fighting over food. You better believe that. They always have and they always will. You have to have food and water to live, right? And deadly diseases, there's deadly diseases on the planet. There seems to be an increase in that too, starting at least the beginning. So this, not only is this something that we're seeing starting to happen, beginning to boil, these earthquakes, scarcity of food, and deadly diseases, but this is also prophecy. This is what's coming. This is the prophecy itself, what's going to happen at the end of the latter years. And I think we can see it's beginning. I mean, this is just look around you. This isn't normal. You know, I'm 64 years old and I've never seen anything quite like this in my time. Maybe some of you that are 120 years old, maybe you've seen it before, but I surely have not. And there shall be horrors and great signs from heaven. But before all this, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the congregations. Congregations? That's kind of odd, isn't it? And prisons. And prisons. And he brought before and be brought before sovereigns and rulers of my name, for my name's sake. And it shall turn out to you for a witness. Wow. So this is kind of an odd passage here where it says, deliver you up to the congregation. To me, a congregation is like a meeting place of a group of people. Could it be these Noahic laws are being foretold here, where the Levites, the Sadducees that are being formed right now under the Temple Mount, I mean, they're not being formed, they're there. They've been formed. Are going to have the power and to judge people who are Yehudite or Gentile. Decide if they're a Gentile calling themselves Yehudite and obeying the commandments, then they'll behead them. You know, that law's on the books. Even the penalty for that law is on the books. It is beheading. They just haven't implemented it yet. It's even on the United States laws. It's on the books here in our nation and their nation, everywhere. Interesting. Deliver you up to the congregations. That could be. That could be. The reborn Sanhedrin or the Sadducees, right? Over there. Very interesting. In prisons, and be brought before sovereigns and rulers for my name's sake, and it shall turn out for a witness, to you for a witness. Turn out to you for a witness of what? That we're in the end times, the end of the latter days, perhaps? I think so. Therefore, resolve in your hearts not to premeditate on what to answer, for I shall give you a mouth and wisdom which all your adversaries shall not be able to refute or resist. Thank you, Yahuwah. And you shall also be betrayed by parents and brothers and relatives and friends. That is very disturbing. You know, betrayal is a strange thing, you know. Betrayal is never executed by your enemies. It's always something that happens to you by your parents, your brothers, your relatives, and your friends. It's a sad word, really, betrayal. Yet, it's prophesied to happen on an elevated scale. So it's sad, you know, that you get in an argument or disagree with somebody in your family or friends, and they run to the authorities and turn you in because you're obeying the 10 Commandments or something. You know, you're not obeying the Christian laws, the laws of grace, right? Age of grace laws or Noahic laws, and they turn you in because they're mad at you, and then you get thrown in prison or beheaded. It doesn't sound like everyone is going to get thrown in prison or beheaded, because he said he's going to give us words to say. It sounds like they're going to let us go when we say the words, the Ruach HaKodesh speaks through us. So there's another reason that it's vitally important for you to have the Ruach HaKodesh in you. Because for I shall give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to refute or resist. That's only going to happen if the Ruach HaKodesh is speaking through you. And he has to be indwelling you before he can speak through you and give you what to say. He'll speak for us, basically. So there's a big reason that we need to be immersed with the Ruach HaKodesh as we enter into the end of the latter days. And some of you shall be put to death. Say, some of us will. And you shall be hated by all because of my name. So first of all, it could be that our parents and brothers and relatives and friends turned us in because we're calling on the true name. Ooh, that's a good possibility. Last will be first and the first will be last. Maybe that's what's happened to the first Nazarene, right? They were in big trouble for calling on his name, and people were turning them in. Paul was out chasing them down like dogs, hauling them back to the judgment seat of the Sanhedrin. Penalty was death. It appears maybe that's history's going to repeat itself here on the last Nazarene. And you shall be hated by all because of my name. And some of you shall be put to death. Interesting. Okay, verse 18. But not a hair of your head shall be lost at all. Huh? Does that mean if you know his name, you're going to be one of the ones that he protects, because he's going to be living in you, and then he's going to give your mouth what to say in wisdom, that your adversary shall not able to resist you? Oh, now I get it. So the ones that are just going around pretending like they're Nazarene and don't have the Ruach may be in for some big trouble. But the ones that do have the indwelling Ruach, he will speak out of their mouth and give them wisdom and things, the right thing to say, so that they'll be released. Even though they will be hated because of his name, but not a hair of your head shall be lost at all. Hey, that's starting to shed some daylight on the subject, right? So it's really not a contradiction, is it? No, of course not. It's not a contradiction. Possess your lives by your endurance. And when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its destruction is near. Now, this can be talking about that era that they're in prior to 70 AD. And that could be a shadow of what's going to happen at the end of the latter days. That's how Yahuwah does things. He shows us what's going to happen by actual events in that present era, the shadow of things to come. It's very interesting how he works. Yahuwah also quite frequently speaks as though things have already happened. So things in the future, when he speaks, it's like they've already happened. So very interesting how Yahuwah speaks and talks, does things. Then let those in Yehuda flee to the mountains, and let those who are in the middle of her go out. And let not those who are in the fields enter her, because these are Yamam of vengeance. to fill all that have been written. So now I think he's talking about the end of the latter days, don't you? See how he does it? He uses the shadow to show us the reality. Because these are Yamam of vengeance to fill all that have been written. All that have been written. I mean, nothing left. It's going to fulfill all that's written. So it has to be talking about the latter days, right? Yeah, it has to. All that has been written, there's no more left, right? So you're just specifically talking about the era prior to 70 AD, then all that had been written when had been fulfilled. See it? And woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing children in those days. Yamam. For there shall be great distress in the Eretz and wrath upon this people. All righty. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trampled underfoot by the nations until the times of the nations are concluded. Wow. And there shall be signs in the sun and moon and stars and the Eretz, anxiety of nations. Everybody run around nervous, anxious, stressed. In bewilderment at the roaring of the sea. Okay, so something's going to happen with the sea. The agitation, men fainting from fear. So something big time's going on for men to faint from fear. And the expectation of what is coming on the Eretz. For the powers of the Shemayim shall be shaken. So this is an interesting passage as well, right? Something's going to happen. There's going to be a roaring of the sea. I don't know how many have ever seen the folding of the U.S. currency bills in order to show pictorial pictures of future events or past events now. But one of them is when they fold it, a certain bill, there's a big tidal wave coming over New York City, and it shows it. There's also shows the Hoover Dam broke open and a big flood coming out of the Hoover Dam on another bill. But this is supposed to be caused by a nuclear bomb falling into the Atlantic Ocean, blowing off and causing a tidal wave to circum New York City, totally engulfed with water. They also have the folding of a certain bill shows the Twin Towers burning. There's one that's showing the Pentagon. Quite a few different things. Those things can't be there accidentally. But that's for another study. Anyways, interesting. Bewilderment at the roaring of the sea and agitation. Men fainting. Men don't faint from fear. If there's a coward, he usually runs and hides and shakes. Men usually are not known for fainting. But here, this must be really bad stuff for men to be fainting from fear. And the expectation of what is coming on the Eretz. So apparently, at this point, somehow they know what's coming, that something's going to happen, and everybody knows about it. It's not that everybody knows what's written in Scripture, is there? Nah, not everybody knows what's written in Scripture. But somehow news has been released of something bad's coming. And so there, and the expectation was coming on the Eretz, some other natural disaster apparently, or maybe a nuclear war or something, horrible, something horrible. For the powers of the Shemayim shall be shaken. Okay, so maybe it has something to do with the sun and the moon and the stars, right? Like supernovas or eclipses or something, you know, a solar flare, something. And then they shall see the Son of Adam coming in a cloud with power and much esteem. So there you go. They're going to see Yahusha coming back in the cloud after all this calamity and horror. And with power and much esteem. And when these things begin to take place, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. All right. So your redemption draws near. That means Yahushua's about ready to raise some dead up and change some of the living, give them immortality. And he spoke a parable to them. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. When they have already budded, observing it, you shall know for yourself that summer is now near. So you also, when you see these things take place, that we just spoke about, know that the reign of Elohim is near. So this is saying, you know, it's going to be pretty obvious that we're in the end of the latter days, folks. It's not going to be something we're going to be sitting and scratching our heads going, I wonder if this is it. You know, we're going to know it's it. It's going to be a calamity and horror. Some sight that we've never seen, nobody's ever seen before. It's going to be unbelievable, unspeakable sign in the Shemayim. In the roaring of the sea here on the earth as well, right? So there will be no mistaking it. Truly I say to you, this generation shall by no means pass away till all shall have taken place. The heaven and the earth shall pass away, but my words shall by no means pass away. Okay, so how is the heaven and the earth going to pass away? This is speaking of when he does the renewal, when he gives us a new heaven and a new earth and a new body and a new city. But his word shall by no means pass away. So we're going to have the same Torah. He's not going to give us a different Torah. You're going to have the same. It's not going to pass away. Everything else will be made new, but not the Torah. We're going to have the same Torah with us. Same covenant, same Torah, same Messiah. We're going to be the same too. We're just going to have immortal bodies rather than flesh and blood bodies. And take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down by gluttony and drunkenness and worries of this life, and that Yom come on you suddenly. So we should probably go back and examine the parable of the seed guy, right? Throwing seeds in different places. Go and check that parable out. Make sure that we're receiving his seed well, and it's producing, growing up, producing fruit, right? Okay, so for it shall come as a snare on all those dwelling on the face of all the Eretz, because they're not going to expect this. Something major is going to happen, like a black swan event type deal. We're going to wake up to it, or we're going to be working and something happens. It's going to kick it all off. Kind of like when the Twin Towers were struck, right? Whatever you were doing at that time, nobody expected it. Same with Noah and the flood, right? It's just going to come on us. It's not going to be that we're all going to be caught off guard, to speak, because, you know, the Nazarene and the Talmudim that are studying scriptures daily and understand these things are going to recognize it immediately. We're going to know what's going on. Some of us. Many will be caught off guard, not realizing that what they're seeing is scripture being fulfilled, prophecy being fulfilled right in front of their eyeballs when everything starts happening. They're not going to say, oh, here comes Yahushua's going to be coming. This is it, man. No mistaking. This is the end of the later days. Some people ain't going to know that. They're going to think, oh, we're all going to die. The sky's falling, like Chicken Little, right? Fainting all over the place, dying of heart attacks, robbing and killing people, just going nuts, doing whatever they want because they know they're going to die. Yeah. So it'll affect people differently. The Nazarene will maybe, wow, it's really coming type awakening, but we're going to know what it is. Anybody that's familiar with scriptures will know what it is. Watch then. Oh, for it shall come as a snare on all those dwelling on the face of all the rats. Now, listen to this. Watch then at all times and pray that you be counted worthy to escape all this about to take place and to stand before the Son of Adam. What does that mean? Yeah, that means we should be praying to be counted worthy to be in the first resurrection. Help us clean up. Get all the blemishes, all the wrinkles, all the spots out of us. Make me more like Yahusha. We should pray that every day. Make me worthy to escape all this about to take place and to stand before the Son of Adam in an immortal body, resurrected. So this is speaking of the first resurrection here. And we should be praying about that. That's what it says. Yeah, we should be praying about it. Because even, the elect, is just barely going to get in just by the scarcity, or, by the scarcity of our teeth, is escaping fire. So what's going to happen to the rest of the people if we're just barely going to squeak in by the skin of our teeth? What's happened to them? How they getting in? So we all need to pray. There's no free ticket, man. We all got to endure to the end. And that includes praying that you be counted worthy to escape all this which is about to come and stand before Yahusha. Okay? Do it. He tells us to do it. We need to do it. Don't take anything for granted. Okay? And he was teaching in the set apart place by Yom, but at Leah he went out and stayed on the mountain of Olives. And early in the morning, all the people came to him in the set apart place to hear him. And so he'd go sleep on the Mount of Olives, come back to the temple early in the morning and start teaching people again. Wow, huh? The generation by no means will pass away, to all shall have been taken place. This is known as the parable of the fig tree. And I think most of us are familiar with it. The fig tree, of course, being Yisrael. The generation that's not going to disappear, okay, is the generation that was born, the people that started the generation, that the babies that were born the same time Israel came back on the map, which is 1948. And Psalms, I think it's Psalms 80. Psalms, where is it? It's in Psalms. Psalms 90 says, 90:10 says that the Yamam of our lives are 70 years, or if due to strength, 80 years. Yet the best of them is but toil and exertion, for it is soon cut off and we fly away. So that means that at the last of the generation, Israel came back on the map in 1948. Those who were born in 1948 is that last generation. Okay, so if they go continue to live to 70 years or 80 years, so we have, when given two figures, mathematical law says we use the outside number, which would be 80. So we have to use 80. So you add 80 to 1948, it comes up with 2028. Okay, some people claim it's 2030. And this is talking about the return of Yahusha. Now, if you notice here, this will be soon cut off and we fly away means, I think what that means is that last generation, the last people, before they reach 80 there, they're not going to die because they're going to be, the time, the wrath of the anti-Mashiach is going to be cut off. His reign will be cut off and they're going to fly away. In other words, they're going to be caught up. The living and the dead at that time will be given immortality and caught up or fly away to Yahusha in the clouds as he's descending back upon the Mount of Olives. That's what that's talking about. Okay, so that's the fig tree prophecy. We have a study on that on NazareneLife.com. And I think I also have a video on this channel on that as well. If you want to study that more and learn more about that, you go to either one of them sources and there's a ton of information on it. Okay, so that's Luke 21. So can you see now that the earthquakes in various places has increased from 70 in the great ones in the last century to 265 in this century, which ain't even over yet. And we're beginning to see scarcity of food. In America, the land of the plenty, empty shelves in the food stores, grocery stores. Are you kidding me? And deadly diseases, COVID, all these different variants, and other things. There's a lot of other weird things out there too that you don't hear a whole lot about, but they're there that we didn't even know about before, or at least they've increased dramatically. Yeah, that stuff's starting to happen right now. It's pretty plain. We don't have to look too far or study too hard to see that these things are happening right now. What's going on with the food supplies and the food chains, folks? Matter of fact, what's going on with everything? It's happening to everything. You know, and you think about all the other crazy stuff that's coming around too, like, such as in Daniel with the iron mixed with clay and they don't mingle type thing. And we start looking around and we see all this artificial intelligence, this robots coming out of Japan and other places that look like women, and these guys are buying them and marrying them. A robot? Are you kidding me? Cyborg, you know, a lot of artificial limbs, organs, all kinds of stuff being put in the human body now, including chips, you know, high-tech computer chips and so forth and so on. Wow. So we look at all that, and we look at this. It's looking like we're getting very close to the end of the latter days to me. Now, another thing, like I said in the beginning, is when now all of a sudden Russia isn't an ally of Germany and Europe anymore like they were. Yes, they were an ally. They were getting along just fine. Now all of a sudden they're not. They're at war in more than one way. It's just very weird. And then you have the BRICS alliance with India and China. In South Africa? In Brazil? That's where all your supplies are going. They're keeping it between themselves, and more people are joining because they want a piece of it. The United States is suffering because we gave away all our manufacturing ability to make things. It affects everything. You don't have the parts for your machinery, your tractors and all that, your harvesting stuff, equipment. There's all kinds of, it affects everything. I mean, we've all heard the rumors about all these cargo ships sitting off the coast of California, docked at, out there wet and just anchored. Why aren't they unloading their stuff in San Diego or Los Angeles or even San Francisco? Why? Because somebody's controlling something, and that something is the supplies we need. It's dwindling down more and more and more. Can you see dwindling? It's getting worse, and the prices are going higher. So supply is dwindling, prices are increasing across the board. That right there alone tells us that somebody's doing it. It's not a natural thing that's happening to our economy. It's being manipulated. All righty. Let's go to Matthew 24. Isaiah DS, glad you're here, brother. My old friend Isaiah DS. Been around for a while together, ain't we, brother? All righty. Bruce, how you doing? Glad you're here. Earl, glad you're here, man. All right, so let's take a look at Matthew 24, and we'll get a confirmation of some of this, and we're going to see a little bit different, said in a different way, and a little bit of different things than we didn't have before. And maybe it all put the puzzle, put the big picture together for us. It's still daylight here. Ain't even started Shabbat yet. All righty. BYNB, Matthew 24. And going out, Yahusha went away from the set apart place, and his Talmudim came near to point out to him the buildings of the set apart place. And Yahusha said to them, do you not see all these? Truly I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another at all, which shall not be thrown down. And as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the Talmudim came to him separately, saying, say to us, when shall this be, and what is the signal of your coming and of the end of the age? So here we find out, yes, he was speaking about the end of the age, the end of the latter times in Luke. See, even though it didn't tell us that like it is here. So Matthew 24 is going to be more revealing, although it leaves some things out that's in Luke 21. So it kind of coincide and help each other, really give us more understanding. And Yahusha answering said to them, take heed that no one lead you astray, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Mashiach, and they shall lead many astray. That's interesting. And you shall begin to hear of wars and reports of wars. See that you are not troubled, for these have to take place, but the end is not yet. So interestingly here, in Revelations, when we read about the seals, the seven seals, the first four seals are the horses of the apocalypse. And this right here seems to be referring to the red horse. And you shall begin to hear of wars and rumors of wars. The red horse represents war, literally. All right. And Russia, communism, China also represents that too. So interesting here that we can piece that together. See that you are not troubled, for these have to take place, but the end is not here. Okay. For ethnicity, and F shall rise against ethnicity. Ethnicity and race is kind of like the same thing. But race, when you say race, you're specifically talking about skin color, different colors of skin. When you say ethnicity, it's meaning a group of people that have the same history, customs, religions, eat the same type of food and things, it can be other color of skin doing the same thing. See what I'm saying? So it's kind of the same, but not quite. If you see what I'm saying. But anyway, then you could say race here shall rise against race. I mean, it would be a fairly correct statement. That would be something that would happen in most all the countries in the world, but the United States surely pops out there, stands out, right? Because we have so many different races in our nation, making up our nation. And reign against reign, which would be like kingdom against kingdom type thing. It could be even more tribal, really. I mean, nation against nation is more of some type of corporation deal. Nation, corporation against corporation type establishment, large gathering of people, right? Legal, making commerce, stuff like that, where reign against reign could be more tribal. It could be like city against city, if you will. Town against town, that type of thing. And there shall be scarcities of food. There's that scarcities of food again. And we're seeing that happen right now. And deadly diseases, again, in Matthew, confirming it. There's our confirmation. And earthquakes in places, which we know is increased dramatically, almost tripled over from this century to last century. So that's jumping out. This is interesting here. The scarcities of food and deadly diseases. This could be pointing to the black horse of the apocalypse. Stands for famine, literally, and also can mean capitalism and balance, stock markets, the scales, and all that kind of stuff. So capitalism, black's the color of capitalism, red's the color of communism. So we can see the black horse here in this as well. And there should be scarcities of food and deadly diseases and earthquakes in places, right? Yes. And all these are the beginning of birth pains. So, this fighting up here or rising up between races and towns and cities, if you will, is what would cause them to do all that? Well, the very next sentence, and there shall be scarcity of food and deadly diseases. So it sounds like they're going to be fighting over food and survival. Does it not? Yeah. famine, lack of food and water will cause people to fight, and it's all through history. So it's absolutely what sounds like is that ethnicity and reigns, which is basically races and towns or city against city or whatever, is going to be fighting because of the scarcity of food and deadly diseases that's come upon them. Maybe fighting over medicine, who knows? That's what it sounds like to me. We can see this starting to happen. It's interesting if we go to Ezekiel 4, 1 through 3, it sounds like all this scarcity of food and destroyed economy and deadly disease and all this is going to be brought on us by a siege of some sort. A siege of some sort. That's pretty amazing, really. Kind of scary, isn't it? Could there be a siege by an attack, say, on the East Coast from China, and Russia, Brazil, India? Or could it be the anti and the reborn Holy Roman Empire coming and attacking us from the East? And then South America, they will be aligned with coming up from the southern borders. Possibility. It definitely sounds like it. And go to Ezekiel 4, 1 through 3 once. Ezekiel 4, 1 through 3. And you, son of man, take a clay tablet, and you shall lay it before you, and shall inscribe on it a city, Jerusalem, and shall lay siege against it, and build a siege wall against it, and heap up a mound against it, and set camps against it, and place battering rams against it all around. Then take an iron plate and set it as an iron wall between you and the city, and you shall set your face against it, and it shall be besieged, and you shall lay siege against it. It is a sign to the house of Yisrael. Where's Israel at? We're scattered abroad. All right, so it's a sign to us, to Yisrael. What kind of sign? Well, maybe it's a sign that the USA will be under siege. I mean, think about it, man. Look at this, how low we are in supplies. We probably don't have enough supplies to fix anything that we would need to fix in a war. We don't have enough supplies to manufacture anything, and we're low on food. All right? Look at gas. They stopped producing gas, and the price of gas is sky high. It's almost untouchable for some folks. People take that for granted. There's people out there that's struggling right now because they can't afford them gas prices, man. And we got weak leadership like we've never had. But this country's never been this weak with leadership. This is horrible. Our leadership is a laughing stock of the world right now. I mean, watch Joe Biden, how he stumbles in his words. You can't even read the teleprompter. He leaves 2 or 3 words out in between other words. You can't even speak a full sentence. He falls down walking upstairs. But we got a weak leadership and weak people in this nation right now. I know people don't like to hear that, but it is true. Men used to be men. When I was a young man, men were men. Now, no, they're snowflakes. They can't. You say something to them, it hurts their feelings. It's like they can hate your guts or something, man. They can't take it. They're so thin-skinned, it's ridiculous. That's why they call them snowflakes. You say something just a little bit off to them, and they have a meltdown like the world ended. Now, we used to eat that stuff up like candy, spit it right back at them, and keep going. What happened? Now, we're living in a weak society, man, and we have very weak leaders, and our supplies are dwindling. They're going down, 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 down every day. And we do have a food shortage in this country. It's ridiculous. So that does seem to me like this is speaking that some kind of a siege is going to start all this. Yeah, just don't know where it's going to come from. I got a sneaking feeling that the Holy Roman Empire, led by Germany and the Anti, is going to betray us. We'll see what happens. All right, so pestilence here, deadly diseases can be pestilence. And what's pestilence? The green horse. One of the horses of the apocalypse. The green horse represents pestilence, literally. So we can place the green horse here as well. So we have all four horses of the apocalypse represented here. What? You say, where's the white horse? Well, the white horse is, for false messiahs and false prophets shall arise, and they shall show great signs and wonders so as to lead astray. This could be the white horse, the false prophets, Christianity, Catholicism, leading many people astray with their religions and traditions. Oh, we haven't got that far yet. Hang on a minute. Let's back up. All right. So 8. All of these are the beginning of birth pains. So we're feeling the birth pains. What's that mean? That means we're in labor. If you're feeling the birth pains, ladies, are you not in labor? Absolutely are. So once you start labor, it's not long till you're going to give birth. So this ain't something that's, maybe 9 months is 9 years, but it's been a while since we've been seeing this stuff come on. But to be fair, it's only been like 2 years now, maybe going on the 3rd year that this stuff has really came out big time, right? 6 more years? Who knows? That's not scriptural, but it's an interesting thought. But obviously, we are in labor, because I know the beginning of birth pains have started, right? Then they shall deliver you up to affliction and kill you, and you shall be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many shall stumble, and they shall deliver up one another, and shall hate one another. Okay, so this is kind of generally speaking of what we just read in Luke about him giving us a mouth and wisdom on what to say, and not a hair on our head to be hurt, because why? The Ruach HaKodesh is in us, the ones who have the Ruach. And this other one is speaking of the parents, the brothers, the sisters, the relatives, and the friends, right? Turning us in. And then many shall stumble, and they shall deliver up one another, and shall hate one another. See, so that's the same thing. It's just spoken more general. And many false prophets shall rise up and lead many astray. Here's our white horse. So now we have representation of all four horses of the apocalypse in this prophecy in the end of the latter days. And so, very interesting. They showed up earlier, like the white horse, for example, showed up about the 4th century, thereabouts, but it's still here. So although they started at different times, they're all still here and present right now in the end of the latter days. And many false prophets shall rise up. They're false prophets, false teachers, and lead many astray with their traditions, their religions, their fables, their myths, their fairy tales, right? Their holidays, all that stuff. So this is speaking of Catholicism and Christianity, the white horse, religious. And because of the increase in lawlessness, now this is an interesting verse here. And because of the increase in lawlessness, the love of many shall become cold. Okay, so what's another word for lawlessness? Torahlessness. Why are we Torahlessness or lawless? Because they've tossed the Torah into the iniquity bin. They say the Torah is no longer valid. It is irrelevant. It is abolished. We do no longer have to obey Yahuwah. Okay, who's saying all that? The white horse. And many false prophets shall rise up and lead many astray. Interesting, the love of many shall become cold. When we start going, and again, going back to Daniel, where the iron doesn't mix with the clay. And let's look at Daniel real quick. Yeah, that's an interesting verse, really. I think that's Daniel 2, if I ain't mistaken. Daniel 2, I do believe. Yeah, Daniel 2:43 says, and as you saw iron mixed with muddy clay, they are mixing themselves with the seed of men. Who's mixing themselves with the seed of men? Well, it has to either be demons or robots. Do you know that Japan has robots out right now that you can go, that perform sexual stuff and talks with people and does everything a woman does, and they can buy them and marry them? Yeah, they're not throwing it out there a lot, but it's out there. You can absolutely Google it and find it yourself. Just look at Japan and the dwelling. The entire race is beginning to evaporate to nothing. So they have to do something. And there's a cultural divide between men and women over there, where a lot of women now are making more money than the men. And to a Japanese man, that's a great insult. And they won't even look at the woman. So much less ask her out for a date. Won't even look at her because of that. Yeah. So there's a big problem going over there, and they do have robots. And I read, it doesn't mean it's true, but it sounds true because I've read it in several different sources, that they can actually, these robotic females have like a test tube in their womb, and they can put the man's sperm in there, and the baby will grow in the test tube inside this robot. And then they can feed the baby intravenously somehow through that test tube or whatever it is. So they're working on them being able to actually give birth too and everything. So that's crazy stuff. So this right here, and as you saw iron mixed with muddy clay, they are mixing themselves with the seed of man. It either has to be demons or robots, but they are not clinging to each other. So maybe not working out so well either way, even as iron does not mix with clay. It's very interesting, isn't it? It's extremely interesting concept there on that. But the love of many shall become cold because they're in love with machinery. Look at the children. Look at the adolescents and the young kids now, young adults. They are so in love with that cell phone. Now, you can't, if you took that away from them, they probably faint. Or run away, they would do something. They can't stand it not to have that cell phone stuck on their ear. We're in front of their face doing this, million mile an hour. Yeah, we're in love with machinery instead of other humans now. It's ridiculous. You know, a couple goes out, they go to a restaurant, they have a romantic dinner, candlelight dinner, and instead of sitting there staring in each other's eyes, which science has proven that if two people stare at each other in their eyes, that their hearts will beat at the same heartbeat. It will sync, and it will beat at the same rhythm, same time precisely, just by looking each other in the eyes, man. But instead of doing that and talking sweet things to each other, they're sitting there texting to each other across from the table, talking to each other with the text. I hate texting. I can't stand it. You know, I couldn't hardly. I can remember when telephone calls were hard because you couldn't see the person's emotions and facial expressions and body language. So sometimes you would get mixed up on what they were saying to you over the phone. You talking to your girlfriend or boyfriend or something, or anybody. And, you know, now it's like crazy. It's like it's so easy to take people the wrong way on a text message or an email. I mean, it's almost ridiculous that we're doing that. I mean, I know people, they won't even answer their phone. I call them, they won't answer the phone, say hello. But if I text them and say, hey, you there? Boom, they're on there right now. So they wouldn't answer the phone, but as soon as I text them, they grab the phone and start going nuts with their thumb. I do this. I can't stand it. I'd rather much talk to somebody face to face, really. Because at least if they get the wrong opinion of what you're saying or they're reading you wrong, you can correct it. And they can see in your eyes and your face that you're serious. And yeah, okay, I can see you were meaning that by the way, the expression on your face, right? Especially around your mouth area. But, you know, without seeing the person, you don't know how serious they are or how much they're serious about. They didn't mean that. They could just be saying. They could say that all day long doing this. You wouldn't know the difference. So anyway, yeah, the love of many shall become cold because they no longer teach Torah. What's Torah do? It teaches us how to love, right? So without the Torah, we have no instructions on how to love. We need instructions on how to love because we forgot how to love. We forgot who we are. We forgot who Yahuwah is. We no longer know Yahuwah, a lot of people. You know, they go around saying, oh, I got to find myself. I just can't do this no more. I'm confused. I got to find myself. And they don't realize that they're love. That's who they are. Once they find love, they find themselves because who they are. We're made out of the essence of Yahuwah, who is love. It's a sad thing, really. And it's all because they no longer have the Torah to teach them this on how to love Yahuwah and love others. Their disobedience drives them further away from love. It's a sad set of affairs, really. But he who shall have endured to the end shall be delivered. See, so we can't stop. We have to endure. And this Besorah of the rain shall be proclaimed in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end shall come. I think the Besorah has been proclaimed to most of the world now. I think it's written in almost every language and is available in every nation, one way or the other, at least known about. You know, it's pretty worldwide spread at this point in time. You know, just the the evidence of all the translations written in all the different languages is proof of that. Okay, so they don't have to no longer learn English or Latin or Greek or Hebrew to be able to read scriptures. It's in their own language now. It's written in every language on the planet. So that's a good indication that that has been fulfilled, or at least mostly been fulfilled. So when you see the abomination that lays waste spoken of by Daniel the prophet set up in the set apart place, he who reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Yehuda flee to the mountains. The abomination that lays waste spoken of in Daniel. Okay, so very quickly, you can take a look at Daniel 11, and you can read about what was the domination that lays waste spoken of Daniel's in Daniel 11, and there's other ones too. And basically, what this is there was an image of Zeus put up on the Temple Mount, and this anti-Mashiach sort was sacrificing pig meat on the altar of Yahuwah, so forth and so on. And so this statue or altar to Zeus was the abomination that lays waste. So that's what we can see or look forward to coming here at the end of the latter days. There'll be a reality to that. Okay, so there will be an abomination that lays waste, set up. It's not there, but it's going to be set up. It's not there already, but it will be set up in a set apart place. Okay, so we'll see where that temple is erected. The set apart place here, generally, when it says this, is speaking of the Holy of Holies. Okay, because usually if it's a set apart mountain or set apart city or something like that, when it says set apart place, generally it's speaking of the Holy of Holies. Okay, so the next temple that's going to be erected there would be the third, and it's not going to be up on where the Dome of the Rock is. It's going to be down below that, where the Gishon Spring is, where they found it, and it's going to be where they have found these misvahs and all this other things that were located in the temple or near the temple. And they're going once they find this out, and which they already have, once they've come up with enough evidence and then there's enough pressure on the government, they're going to allow them to erect that right there. They've got everything they need. They got the red heifers. They have the utensils, they have the furniture, they have the Levites through DNA testing, traced all the way back to Aaron's line, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they're very serious about doing this. Okay. Very serious about it. It's called the Temple Faithful, if you want to look it up. Very interesting stuff. So, okay. So this sounds like there's going to be some type of third temple and some kind of an abomination that lays waste erected up there when it gets down to really right around that final 3.5 years, the end of the latter days. Maybe 1 year into it, but maybe right there at the split of the 7 years too. But anyway, let's continue on. The abomination and desolation here in this 24:15 through 21 here is also can be found in Mark 13:14 through 19. It speaks of several abominations and desolations in Daniel as well. Daniel 9:25 through 27, Daniel 11:29 through 32, Daniel 12:11 through 12, and Revelations 13:14 through 15. There's different abominations of desolations. One book doesn't cover all, right? Or one story doesn't cover all. There's more than one. Okay? So don't get stuck on that. Okay, just like there's more than one beast, don't get stuck on that either. Let him who is on the housetop not come down to take whatever out of his house, and let him who is in the field not turn back to get his garment. And woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing children in those days. That little bit of, that's an interesting thing right there, verse. It almost makes me think of, the lack of baby formula that's going on, and abortion. Women are pregnant to get abortions, lack of baby formula, and other things related we all know about is hidden in this verse, because this is speaking of those days, which to me means the end of the latter days, getting real close, right? 7-year period, the last 7-year period, I think. And woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing children in those yamon. And why would he say that? It's because there's some kind of calamity there, some kind of horror. Let me tell you something here. They just not too long ago, last week, where it was, reverse Roe versus Wade, and everybody going nuts, and you could see the evil and the wickedness stirring, right? And so I go on there to find out exactly what this law said, this reversal, and what it did and all this. And as I was reading through all this, one thing led to another and led to another, and somehow I ended up on a satanic site. And this satanic site was like from the temple of Satan. And I'm not going to tell you where it was or anything. It's not important. But the thing of it is that they were saying that they were going to do a protest this new thing, and because they were given a religious liberties through their satanic religion, and part of their religious belief is to take an aborted baby and sacrifice it to Satan. And so, since this was a violation of their religious rights protected under the First Amendment, they were going to appeal this new reversal of Roe versus Wade. And I couldn't believe it, man. And it went on and on and on. But the horror that they were allowed to do that, because abortion was legal. They were allowed to abort these babies and sacrifice them to Satan as part of their religious rituals. And now they're going to appeal it under the rights of their Second Amendment's been violated. I'd blow my mind, man. So anyway, let's continue. And pray that your flight does not take place in winter or on the Shabbat. That's very interesting as well. Pretty much proves that Shabbat still exists, right? Otherwise, why would we have to pray that the flight wasn't on Shabbat, So there remains a Shabbat for the children of Yahuwah. For then there shall be a great distress, such as has not been since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever will be. And if those Yamim were not shortened, no flesh would be delivered. But for the sake of the chosen ones, those Yamim shall be shortened. So this is telling us that the anti-Mashiach's days will be cut short, and we're going to fly away at the first resurrection. All right. So at the first resurrection, what happens? Yahushua comes back. Those dead in Mashiach will rise first, receive their immortal bodies. And then those that remain alive, the Ruach HaKodesh in them, will be changed in the wink of an eyelid, given them mortality, take their flesh and body off and give them immortality. They will still be the same people. And then we will be fly away, caught up into the clouds with Yahushua as he ascends upon the Mount of Olives. All right, so just that statement alone, if you really consider it, and if those Yamim were not shortened, no flesh would be delivered, but for the sake of the chosen ones, those days shall be shortened. That statement right there alone proves that we're going to still be on the earth at the time of his second coming. It debunks the rapture all by itself, right? Ain't no rapture. Why would he have to shorten the days for our sake if we raptured us away before all this happened? He just let it all happen, right? But he's not going to. He's going to cut the days short. We're going to fly away. For the sake of the elect, he's going to shorten the days. So that means we're still going to be here going through what? The tribulation years. There's no rapture. That's a lie. If anyone then says to you, look, here is the Mashiach, or there, do not believe. For false Mashiachs and false prophets shall arise, and they shall show great signs and wonders so as to lead astray, if possible, even the chosen ones. See, so we're still going to be here if they could lead us astray. This is more proof the rapture is not true. The rapture can easily be traced back to its origins. It was only like a few centuries back. Yeah, I mean, it's not, you don't even have to strain to find it, you know, so it's a fake, made-up myth. Interesting, show great signs and wonders so as to lead astray, if possible, even the chosen ones. These are done by false Mashiachs and false prophets. Okay, it's kind of like the same thing back in Exodus when Moshe had to contend with the magicians and the sorcerers and the witches of Egypt, right, of the Pharaoh. Their stuff was all enchantments and magical tricks, you know, and they kind of got away with it up until Moshe took his staff and touched the sand, and gnats or lice came up, you know, from the sand, was created out of the sand. And all of a sudden they said, oh, we can't create life, Pharaoh. This is from the finger of Yahuwah. We're done. This ain't no joke anymore. We can't create life. We've been pretending up to this point. We're done, you know. And so they acknowledge right there and then that they can't create or give life or anything like that. It was all pretty much, they were admitting that there was enchantments up to that point where life was created. And they knew they couldn't do that. But besides, they couldn't clear the water up, take away the blood, or take away the frogs either. You know, so like Moshe did, or Yahuwah did, I should say. Okay, so I think here as well that these great signs and wonders are just going to be enchantments or magical tricks. It's going to blow people's mind, you know, like David Copperfield and all these different magicians we have. If you ever went to a really good magician show like that, yeah, they blow your mind with their delusions, you know. It's not real. but you think it's real when you see them doing it. So I think that's what this is going to be. They're not going to have power. False messiahs and false prophets sounds like men to me. Men doesn't have power to do things like Yahuwah can. Okay. See, I have forewarned you. So if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out, or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe. For as lightning comes from the east and shines to the west, so also shall the coming of the Son of Adam be. For wherever the dead body is, there the eagle shall be gathered together, and immediately after the distress of those days, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give its light, and the stars shall fall from the heaven, and the powers of the Shemaim shall be shaken. And then the sign of the Son of Adam shall appear in the heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth shall mourn, and they shall see the Son of Adam coming on the clouds of the heaven with power and much esteem. There's a lot in that. So let's back up here to verse 27. It says, for as the lightning comes from the east and shines to the west. Okay, what is that? Well, that is the sign that we're told in verse 30. And then the sign of that Son of Adam shall appear in the heaven. So that's what the sign is. So what's going to happen? We're going to be given a sign just prior to his coming. What's the sign? Well, the sign for as the lightning comes from the east and shines to the west. So lightning strike. Okay, and everybody says, well, that can't be a sign. We see lightning all the time. Not this kind of lightning. This is going to be a mega flash. And I'm going to say it's going to be a super mega flash, like nothing we've ever seen. Okay, the last mega flash was just a few years ago, and it actually was seen from Houston to southern Mississippi, which is about the same distance from New York City to Columbus, Ohio. 477 miles long, and the lightning mega flash lasted for 17 seconds. That's our world record. So I believe this one is going to be span the globe, the earth, from one end of the earth to the other end, horizon to horizon, right? All the way, however wide that is. I think that super mega flash we're going to see it. And it's going to probably be longer than 17 seconds even. Okay, so it's just going to smoke the current record, world record. That's going to be the sign of his coming, folks, is a super mega flash. It has to be more than 477 miles long and 17 seconds in duration, because that's our world record now. It's going to shatter that, no doubt. Look for it to be from one horizon to the other and last for quite a while. And then the sun will be darkened and the moon shall not give its light. This could be a number of things. Could be what they call a supernova, when it shrinks and goes into a red dwarf star type deal. Could be some kind of weird eclipse, planetary alignment type weird eclipse. Who knows what it's going to be? It could be the sun will be blocked out from all the nuclear fallout, or volcano eruptions, throwing all that dust up there, plus nuclear fallout on top of that. Maybe the atmosphere will be so thick with debris that we can't even see the sun. Kind of like back when Saddam Hussein set all those oil wells on fire over there in Kuwait, and it was so black that it looked like midnight when the sun was at noon. It looked like midnight. You couldn't even see the sun. Could be something like that too, you know. But by any rate, we know the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give its light. Obviously, the moon doesn't have its own light. It just reflects the light of the sun. And the stars shall fall from the heaven. That's interesting. Now, that could be several things. That could be the stars, for some reason, goes out of their position and becomes shooting stars, like a falling star, something all over the place, you know. Or it could be referring to messengers coming down, you know, like the reapers. Could be. And the stars shall fall from the heaven, and the powers of the Shemayim shall be shaken. It could be. Could be the reapers coming down. You know, the Malachim are called stars. They were referred to stars in a lot of places in Scripture. So interesting, right? So that's the sign of the son of Adam, a super mega flash of lightning. And all this other stuff happens. And then all the tribes of the earth shall mourn, and they shall see the son of Adam coming on the clouds of the heaven with power and much esteem. And he shall send his messengers with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his chosen ones from the four winds, from one end of the Shemayim to the other. Four winds just means northeast, south, and west, from all directions, entire planet, all the nations. And learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branches already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. That means we're going to be able to recognize what's happening. So you also, when you see all these, know that he is near at the door. This is kind of a command. He's commanding us. When you see all these things, know that he is near at the door. So he's kind of commanding us to know when he's coming near. He wants us to know. This ain't a secret. He wants us to know. His people, he wants you to know when he's coming. And he's referring you over to the fig tree prophecy here, which we've already talked about. Truly, truly, I say to you, this generation shall by no means pass away until all this takes place. Okay, we've already talked about that. The heaven and the earth shall pass away, but my word shall by no means pass away. Like I said, this is referring to the new heaven, the new earth, the new city, our new bodies. Will all be pass away and will be renewed or new, except for his words, the Torah. The Torah shall by no means pass away. So everything else will be made new. Nothing that we know here, that we see in this planet right now, will exist. It's all going to be done over. It's going to be made new. Even the Shemayim, the earth, the heaven, the new city, our bodies, everything going to be new except for one thing. One thing only, the Torah. But my word shall by no means pass away. So we'll have the same Torah even in the millennium reign and into eternity. Same instructions. Never change. Isn't that interesting? But concerning that Yom and the hour, no one knows, not even the messengers of the Shemayim, but my Father only. And as the Yamim of Noah, so also shall be the coming of the son of Adam be. It would be like the days of Noah. It is. It very much is right now. For as they were in the days before the flood, eating and drinking, marrying and giving and marriage, until the Yom that Noah entered the ark, and they did not know until the flood came and took them all away, so also shall be the coming of the son of Adam be. So in other words, they're just going to be living their life like normal. They're not going to be expecting it. They're not going to even believe anything anybody says about it. They're going to live their life. They're going to get up. They're going to go to work. They're going to go to lunch. They're going to go back to work. They're going to come home. They're going to go to sleep. They're going to go out on the weekends and party and take drugs, drink alcohol, chase whores, all this kind of stuff, pay their bills. Nothing's going to change for people. They're going to continue on precisely as they're doing now. They're not going to get it until it hits. And when it hits and the black swan event comes, or it comes on them, suddenly everything changes then. They might not know what's going on, but the Nazarene will. Then two shall be in the field, and one is taken, and the one is left. Two shall be grinding at the mill, one is taken, and one is left. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your master is coming. This is speaking of the first resurrection, of course. And know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Because of this, be ready too, for the Son of Adam is coming at an hour when you do not expect him. They're not expecting him because they're not reading Torah. They're not studying scriptures. They're not congregating with like-minded people. They're not praying and asking Yahuwah to help them, give them edification, and open up their minds to understand scriptures. They're not asking for the promise of the Ruach to come into them and fill them and dwell in them and to save them, deliver them. They're not asking him to make me more like Yahusha. I want to be like Yahusha. Make me more like Yahusha. That's why they don't expect him. They're just out living their life like I always did. Either being a witch, a sorcerer, a Gentile, a Satanist, an atheist, a Buddhist, a Muslim, whatever. They're continuing to be who they are. And even more so, Scripture says that they will be whatever they are, it will be that even more so as the days come to an end. When the age of the Gentiles closes, whatever you want to say. Who then is a trustworthy and wise servant, whom his master set over his household, to give them food in season? Blessed is that servant. What's food in season mean? Well, I would say that's spiritual food. Living waters and manna from heaven, right? Eat his body and drink his blood. Blessed is that servant whom his master, having come, shall find so doing. Yeah. Feeding people the manna from heaven, feeding them the truth, pure truth. How can you feed people pure truth? By reading out of scriptures. That's how you feed them pure truth. Not arguing with them over their doctrine. That's not feeding them pure truth. That's just making them hate you more. Right? Truly I say to you that he shall set him over all his possessions. But if that evil servant says in his heart, my master is delaying his coming, and begins to beat his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunkards, the master of that servant shall come on a yom when he does not expect it, at an hour he does not know, and shall cut him in two and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of the teeth. Very serious matter. All righty, so that's it for this evening. I'm going to open up the invite. You guys come on in if you want to. If not, I'll jump off here. Very good study, though, and I hope everybody can see, that we are definitely in the end of the latter days. Very close, very close. I think we're going to see scarcity of food, diseases, all this stuff. Earthquakes, we're going to see it coming more and more and more now. I can hardly believe my eyes, really, compared to 40 years ago. You know, man, we were in the land of the plenty, land of milk and honey, right? Overflowing. Our cups were overflowing. Now, because of sin, I think we lack. You know, same thing as what happened to the lifespan. It's because of sin. It's the lifespan started out, 900 years, right? Somewhere around that 900 to 1,000 year range. We got to live for one day in Yahuwah's terms. And then it went down into, I believe around the time of the flood, went to about half of that afterwards. And then it went to something else happened. I can't remember what it was, but it went down to half of that. And then we ended up down around 120 years. And then because of sin, we ended up down to 70 to 80 years. That's where we're at now. We're a generation. 80 years old, 70 to 80. Anybody that lives longer than that, it's because of the will of Yahuwah. Nobody going to come in? I'd like to think that he's coming sooner than later myself. I mean, I'm more than ready to meet our deliverer, our master, our king, our husband. It'll be the day to where we can look up and say, there he is. It's Yahuwah. This is who we've been waiting on. While everybody else is fainting all around us and screaming and going nuts, running around with their hair on fire, and when the mountains will fall on them. Not a day to look forward to because of the horror, the calamity, and the destruction, for sure, of other people. But on the other side of the coin, our redemption draws near. And I think scripture mentions that we'll be like calves jumping out of stalls, leaping and full of joy and leaping like calves out of a stall, right? And the ashes of the wrong will be under our feet. Amazing stuff. Anybody else going to come on? All right, let me see if there's any questions here. If not, I'll move on and get out. Let's see. I'm not seeing any questions. Hi, Bruce.
Shabbat shalom all.
Shabbat shalom. How you doing?
Pretty good. Just dealing with chaos at times. Unfortunately, I have to. I had to go to the local Kaiser that I could get to for my primary doctor to fill out forms. But when I got for my paratransit, because it's supposed to be due over 1 month from today, I got an extension. But now I have to do everything electronically, and then when I went to do my whole process of making sure everything was just electronically sent, now I have to have a Microsoft something, downloaded in order to send the forms. It's kind of crazy in this world of technology that we're living in,
I know.
Especially because of the whole COVID thing. I just feel like just going to booking an appointment with my primary doctor face to face, and I just think I'm just here to hand you some papers, And I was given the runaround today, for
Yeah, we all go through that, Bruce.
I'm used to it. I just need structure. I don't need perfection. Just some structure. And I finally got it. So it's just like, well, I'm still now I have a loophole, that like try to fill in. Like, do I download something that I need, or do I book an appointment face to face with my doctor and say, sorry, I don't know any other easy way to do this. Anyway, yeah. So, but I've been doing, let's see. But I have been enjoying myself with scripture though, and I think part of the reason, and I promised Yahusha on this, is I'm so addicted to games. It's not even funny. I'm 42, and I feel like weird to be addicted to games that I'm good at, just because then I get competitive, and then I erase the games, and then I feel fine because I put them back, and then it's not an addiction at the time. Then I start getting competitive all over again. So I feel like rebaptizing myself and renewing my covenant with Yahusha, because I have to stop living that kind of a life, you know. Yeah, I'm not exactly healthy like I should be, And now because I have high sodium, and so I'm looking at numbers to make sure that I don't hit 2,300 in my sodium intake, and so anyway, it's just like thinking of a lot of stuff, you know, to try to be healthy. I'm borderline pre-diabetic, and I know what it's like in my family to have diabetes. What happened to them. I've been to 2 burials in my life of people, and they lost their battles with addictions. You know, so I don't want to be in that number. One from drugs, one from diabetes, and addictions to alcohol, and I don't want to be in that number. So I understand the consequences.
Yeah.
But also, I think by doing this, I really have thought a lot about. I see the scriptures so much more clearly. I still there's a lot I don't, but I mean, but there's a lot I do, and I just love to see how scriptures come alive, and it encourages me more and more doing that to start reading the entire scriptures from beginning to end. I love it to see things in Yahuwah's will, and the end meaning, the pattern he set is so much more important to me today than than the Western society. How we perverted it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. And then anyway, so but I sometimes feel like too, with all the pent up frustration and that I have, of not being able to do my life goals, or not, at least not the easy way, is I think to myself, well, what do I risk? My friendships, and tell them how I feel, and just say I can't handle this hell any longer. And then risk losing my friends, some of them, and telling them I'm not sorry and my beliefs, sorry, and even to send them something that says that cheesy stigma equals the anti-messiah and what it is, or do I just take my time with it? I mean, I'm very in limbo with that,
I hear you. Here, Maria says, I want to say something. Israelites were being interviewed in Israel. They said Yeshua was a high priest from Israel. They confirm his existence, but they say Paul is the founder of Roman Catholic. Yeah, somebody didn't know what they're talking about there, Maria. First of all, Yahushua is a high priest, but he's also the Messiah, which they deny. And he's also Yahuwah, which he clearly told them he was Yahuwah. They had no problem understanding the message, what he was referring to as being Yahuwah, but they denied who he was. So yeah, he's a lot more than they admit to. And Paul is not the founder of Roman Catholicism. Constantine the First is the one that created universalism. That's what Catholicism means, universalism. And it was, you can credit that to Constantine the First, not Paul.
Yahusha never even promoted religion.
Yeah.
In fact, even though the Pharisees, as is written in Acts, do believe in or have a hope of the resurrection, that's to their credit, and there are Pharisees with well intentions, but I don't think they are very well aware of how they're outside of Yahusha's will. But still, no religion is acceptable. There are people, because I'm not sure how many, but I'm sure a lot of us came out of religion. That there's a lot of truth in them, or a lot of passion about standing firm to our beliefs when we were in them. And even our scriptures do have truth mixed in with man-made interpretations. But no, there's no leader that Yahusha approved of being like the head of any kind of religion.
Yeah, I agree with you. There, Maria again says, "Is this a high Shabbat, new silver moon?" And no, Maria, it's not. The silver moon has nothing to do with anything. The only thing that Scripture talks about is a full moon, the day of our festivals, and a new moon. That relates to the Day of Trumpets and or Teruah, or the first fall festival. Okay. That's always falls on a new moon. All the other ones fall on the full moon. The new moon was part of the old priesthood, so we don't do that anymore. Okay. As far as the new moon being the first day, the beginning of each moon or each month, they used to do animal sacrifices on the new moon. It was just part of the old priesthood. We don't do that anymore, really. Today is, or just a weekly Sabbath. It's not a high Sabbath. A high Sabbath, what people mean by a high Sabbath is when one of the 7 appointed times falls on the weekly Sabbath. Then they, in order to distinguish them, they say Sabbath for the weekly Sabbath and high Sabbath for the festival Sabbath. Okay? See, I don't see any other questions here. Hi, Alan. Glad you're here. Hi, Mom. Glad you're here. Gibson girl, glad you made it in. Yeah, so we have our Zoom at noon, our normally scheduled Zoom at noon tomorrow on this channel, Bruce.
Okay.
It's going to be at noon on this channel, not on NatsRainLife.com.
Okay.
Just for tomorrow. It's not going to happen after that. It's going to go back to Nats Rain Life after that. Okay. So anybody, I made the announcement in the beginning, but if anybody would like to attend tomorrow, Zoom at noon meeting will be held here on Spark and Yu's Yaw channel on YouTube, and it'll be at 12 o'clock tomorrow, July 2nd. At 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Spark and Yu's Yacht. So come on back tomorrow at noon in Eastern Standard Time, and study with us some more. This is a great opportunity for you guys to see what we do on the Zoom at noon meetings, which is usually a private meeting on Zoom that we do on NatsRainLife.com. But tomorrow it'll be free for everybody. Come on here and study about Yahusha some more. We're in the book of Acts. We're studying the book of Acts, which will continue tomorrow.
I have a habit of I don't know why. Maybe my age, my attention span is getting a little bit worse. But I just have a habit where I get like my scriptures, either the Besorah, or even I like the the Bibles with the annotations and the cross references. They help me to find scriptures easier and how they connect. But I keep running them over. I keep running parts of them over when I'm on the ground. And then I just realize, oh, okay, how much did I rip up this time? I hope I didn't rip anything up. So I need to actually start finding somebody who doesn't mind or can afford to send me another Besorah. So I don't know.
Say that again, Bruce. I don't think they heard you.
I need somebody who doesn't mind. If you want, I'll put it in the chat. Whatever you need to know, but cause I can't afford to buy another Besorah. But I've been running over my, I've been leaving my the translations for the Bibles. I have the cross references because that's how I can find it where scriptures, like kind of go together, what they complement. But then I also have the Besorah, and I've been running them over. So I mean,
How you
parts of pages
running them over?
with my wheelchair.
Oh,
Yeah. Mm.
you got it messed up.
Yeah. I mean, just a little bit. I mean, little torn pieces. Sorry.
Bruce.
I know. I live by myself. What do you want? What do you want? I mean, I can't trust myself anymore.
Okay, so Alan Thomas here says all the planets just align. So yeah, I heard about that. I kind of looked up a little bit on it, and it's happened before. It's not like it's something that's never happened. So I'm not real sure the implications or what that has to do with anything, if it's any type of sign or anything from you or whatnot. But
It sounds like astrology, And
I think it might be leaning more into astrology, and we should just probably ignore all that. Because there's nothing. I mean, there's a sign in the Shemayim, Revelations 12, right? With the woman giving birth, had the crown on her head. Now that's scriptural. That's prophecy. But I don't see anything in there about the lining of the planets. If anybody does know if it's in scripture somewhere, post it. But I don't think it is. So I agree with Bruce. I think it's kind of like astrology, and we should stay away from that.
It's
bearing for us.
It's worldly truth. I mean, there's a forced truth in a lot of what the world has to say, but we're really called. What I read, at least in Revelations, we're called to endure. We're called to, persevere. In these crazy times because Satan is going after us whatever way we're weak, or we can be influenced. Yeah, he knows, but the thing is that's where we have to endure with using the entire armor of Yahuwah.
Yeah. Oh, Alan. Yeah, you don't have to Zoom. The Zoom is on NazareneLife.com. It's a private community. It's $25 yearly fee to get on there. There's a ton of benefits and features and everything on there for you. I mean, overwhelmingly, it's well worth the $25. But tomorrow, we're not going to be on the Zoom. We're going to be here on Sparking You is Yah on YouTube, just like you are right now. Just come into it like you are right now. It's at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, right here on this channel. Yeah, so you don't have to worry about Zooming tomorrow. Just come here, just like you are right now, Alan. All righty. So, anything else, Bruce?
Just the usual kind of good times in between, and the hell in between too. and that Yahushua's giving me the strength to endure.
Yeah. talking about solar flares here. I don't know.
I know it. Well, okay. When there's the solar, like a storm, there, like the solar storm, it is reported on the news to interfere with radio signals sometimes, or anything that now can. But what's the point? Like, is that something that we really need to know about?
But doesn't that happen frequently? Don't we get solar flares hitting us frequently?
I don't pay
Is up
attention
the
to that.
magnetic fields or something?
I don't pay attention much to that. I'm thinking that we all have our interests and wondering what matters more. And I'm starting to think, especially when like where it says like the stars will fall from the sky.
Yeah.
You know, well, I've been on occasions I see articles more and more this year and last year about black holes, and around the black holes is an immense heat, and which also goes along with the scripture to me, at least. It goes with the scripture that there will be fervent heat and it'll burn up all the elements. Okay, so maybe we should be aware of that, but I'm not really sure. Again, we need to persevere. We need to endure, you know. And I'm still in this limbo of just like wanting to be part of the part of like living 1,000 years, reign. I'm kind of in limbo on that. Like I love that, but at the same time, I want to. There's a scripture I guess at least where I read it, it's blessed are those who uh, who share in the first death, because the second cannot hurt himself. So it's like I'm I can go either way with it. That's kind of a weird feeling to me, that like kind of like part of me doesn't want to die and then wants to see Yahushua, but then part of me, depending on my stress level, or if I'm drawing close to him, part of me welcomes it, knowing what's going to happen in the end for those who remain faithful. I can't wrap my head around sometimes these kind of observations. They just are.
Well, they say a lot of things, and I read all that stuff too. I'm always surfing on the web to find things that's going on in the world and everything. And sometimes I just wonder, if how true all the stuff that they say is, because things are so far away, so vast. It's hard to really say, But I just I think a lot of the stuff is enchantment or magical tricks or extremely advanced technologies that they haven't released to the public. We don't know about them. They're being hidden, such as UFOs and laser beams and all this other stuff that's not even leaving our atmosphere. It's a funny thing, and most people when they've seen a UFO, the UFO generally goes horizontal. When it goes away, nobody ever says it just lifted and went straight up like a rocket and left our atmosphere. You ever notice that? They always go horizontal, disappear. You know what I'm saying?
It's one of those things that reminds me of the scripture of avoiding stupid controversies. Isn't it like in Titus? The book of Titus will avoid stupid controversies because they do accomplish nothing except to divide.
Well, nobody knows. I mean, there's people that know, obviously, but the general public doesn't have all the answers to some of this phenomenon that we see on TV and radio and everything.
Well, everything will be.
That doesn't mean we can't talk about it. I mean, it's interesting to have a conversation about some of that stuff, especially someone who's a witness that's actually seen it. I've seen something and talked to them about what did you see. I don't see where that's quarreling with them at all. It's having a conversation and sharing an experience, But here in Titus, where you're speaking about, he kind of says, for there are many unruly men, senseless talkers, and deceivers, especially those of the circumcisions, whose mouths have to be stopped, who upset entire households, teaching what they should not teach for the sake of filthy gain. One of them, a prophet of their own, said, Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, and lazy gluttons. The witness is true. Therefore, rebuke them sharply in order for them to be sound in the belief, not paying attention to Yahudite fables and commands of men who turn from the truth. So that's pretty much telling you to stay away from people who are teaching falsehood, religions, traditions, things like that. Okay, you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right, so you upset the whole household. Then we go over to Titus 3, 8 says, hey, by the way, Paul lived with Priscilla and Aquila. They were tent makers for 18 months, and right next door was Titus. So Paul would go over and teach out of Titus's house as well. Can you imagine being there? That would be really cool. Anyway, trustworthy is the word, and in this regard, I wish you to strongly affirm that those who have believed in Yahuwah should keep their minds on maintaining good works. This is good and profitable to men, but keep away from foolish questions and genealogies and strife and quarrels about the Torah, for they are unprofitable and useless. Reject the device of man after the first and second warning, knowing that such a one has been perverted and sins, being self-condemned. So that's speaking about the Torah, okay, not any subject. We're allowed to speak to people about things that they have seen or the stuff that they're seeing on TV. That's not going to hurt anybody,
Okay.
She punch them in the nose or something. I don't like talking about UFOs and you punch them in the nose, so that's a different story. Now you're in trouble. But to speak about UFOs is not a problem. Matter of fact, we need to understand people, let me ask you this, Bruce.
Okay.
If you saw a UFO right up above the trees, that close, and it was as big as a football stadium, and it had lights going around the middle of it, big windows, and inside there you could see white lights around the middle of it. It looked like two saucers turned upside down. It wasn't making any noise, and it was right up above the tree line, and you were on the road looking up at it that close, and it was as large as a football stadium.
Okay.
What would that do for your belief? Would that shake your belief? Enforce your belief? Reinforce it? What would it do? First of all, have you ever seen a UFO?
I've never seen a UFO, but I mean, not in person.
Seen what I just described.
Right.
Would that shake your belief or reinforce your belief?
It would reinforce it.
Why?
Oh, just because, I mean, it would put an end to all the controversies, and speculations. But at the same time, though, when I think about it in terms of faith, Hebrews 11 defines it as giving substance to something that we cannot see. So, in a sense, I can also have the faith that they exist without seeing one. But if I saw it, then that wouldn't be faith. That's how I would take it.
I know, but I mean, would it? Okay, so in your mind, would that mean that there was other life on other planets, or would that mean that demons and men are sneaking around and making these things to deceive people to make them think there's other life on other planets? And what would you think? I mean, what would it do?
I have over my life, even as a Christian, I have thought about that spirits can be exiled onto other planets and come there, but I feel it would make no sense to me that a planet would be made with no life in the first place. It makes zero sense to me about that. So that's kind of sometimes where I think of it, like spiritually. But I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that that's all that makes sense to me, about that. But,
Yeah, say there's no harm in talking about that.
okay. One of my interests has been for years about like genealogy. Of course, I will stand by scripture that everybody on this planet is related to each other through the sons of Noah. We're always looking at family every single day. It's a family reunion every single day, you
Right,
know.
right.
But then I think about how at least one person in my family has done a genealogy, like a DNA test. I am interested in doing a comparison of two genealogy tests. But well, then I think of Titus 3. Is he talking any genealogies? That no genealogy reports are even useful, or is it just about the endless genealogies from like the Hebrew nations? I mean, I don't know where that goes, because I mean it turns out that oddly that when somebody did that in my family, it came back as things that we already know, like we're German and, for example, Polish, Swedish. Yes, I have relatives that have like great grandparents that have come from there. Already know that. But then, of course, it's like 0.1% of like Southeast Asian, and then some other things pop up that I never even heard that we are. It's like, what? Who? you know, and so I just don't want to step out of line with that, because I want to make sure there's a purpose for that, just like in the Chronicles that lists the genealogies. I wonder what's acceptable when doing that, But DNA, I'm kind of mixed on. The DNA test, I'm kind of mixed on.
Well, genealogies, as we just got done reading, and Titus is really because a lot of the people, the Hebrews, back then, and even people today, they'll try to use their genealogy to prove their piousness, or their righteousness. Oh, I'm from the line of David, or I'm from the line of Aaron. I'm better than you are, And
Pride.
saying is, yeah, don't be arguing about your genealogical line, because your inheritance for where you came from has nothing to do with your salvation. It's useless. It's not going to save you. So what if you can prove that you came from Aaron or David or Moses or whoever? That's not going to save you. And the only thing that's going to save you is the blood of Yahushua, Mashiach, right? So I think that's what that's referring to. For you to be interested in your lineage and where you came from, or what nations you came from, or if you have any Hebrew in you, I don't think that has anything to do with anything other than personal knowledge. You want to do the research and find that out. That's what kind of blood you have in you. There's nothing wrong with that. Where the problem comes in is if you start arguing with somebody about, well, I got a better bloodline than you do, so it becomes like you're trying to say you're better than them, and we're all from the same one blood, same flesh and blood.
Yep.
There's one flesh and blood, and we're all from that same flesh and blood.
Mm-hmm.
We're all the same race. We're the human race.
Yep.
There's no other race than human.
Yep.
All the other animals are not human, although we have no advantage over them as far as our flesh over their flesh. But we all die and return to dust. But animal flesh is different than human flesh. But all humans are the same. We're all humanity. That's what I said. We're humanity. We're all in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
People try to think it's like saying I'm better than you because I'm white, or I'm better than you because I'm red, or whatever.
Yeah, I'm against supremacy attitude from anybody. There is no reason for the supremacy, especially if you look back at Acts when Cornelius sent for Peter, and Peter finally acknowledged that he should call no man unclean, and whoever does the will of Yahuwah is acceptable to him. That's where it should show that there's no point in gloating about race. Now, all those who are Gentiles who got grafted in, it is written that we are not supposed to boast against the branches. The reason I test everything, either to the body of believers or to specific people, is I don't either hear truth in what I'm hearing, or it's just because I want to break out of Babylon. That's the reason why, and also to become like one mind and one faith. But supremacy has never been from Yahuwah.
Yeah. But Alan made a good point. There's genealogy in the scriptures,
Yeah,
And,
that's true.
so that just goes to show you there's nothing wrong with it as long as you keep it in perspective. If you try to use it, act like you're better than somebody else because you're from this line or that line, that's not a good thing. Hebrews always kept track of their genealogy, so it's deep in their culture, but it won't save them. No matter who you can trace yourself back to, your deliverance comes through Yahusha. You know what I mean? Or righteousness. I mean, if it's not got your righteousness, it's Yahuwah's righteousness in you, But I'm speaking of Enoch and Elijah when I say righteousness. But obviously, the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach is what delivers, not what line you come from. But it's okay to do it and keep track of it as long as you don't worship your ancestors. And that's a whole new ball game, too. Ancestry worship is no-go. You ain't allowed to do that either. So
that I know. I hope I'm not going to get... I hope I don't get anybody in trouble by doing this, but because to be cautious, I can tell you this. From all my friends who I've had who are like obsessed with movies, I can tell you, I can think of one actor who's still alive who is very much into their multiple racial background and puts it sometimes into his movies. And then I think to myself, that's kind of like nature, that's kind of like ancestor worship in itself. I think that's as far as I should be going with it, because I don't know if I'm allowed to say anybody's names who are alive, who do that. But I noticed that in one of the movies in the last 5 years or so, and I'm thinking, and the guy actually said he could get so caught up in doing what his ancestors did that sometimes he'd kind of break character. He'd kind of forget to snap at him. That. And that's another thing about ancestry worship and knowing too much, is that sometimes you kind of end up inheriting the evil, that they did throughout the generations, and that we're not supposed to do that. I mean, every time I pray with somebody, with another Nazari, that Yahushua allows me to, I mean, or that I see the room to do it, I mean, immediately I start going, I attack and I rebuke any flesh spirits that I have with that particular person, partly because they're there, and it's distracting and irritating, and I start pulling my hearing aids out, all right, I'm done, or I'm just quoting scripture as a way of rebuking the spirits and asking for Yahushua to descend his spirit on the conversation, and loosing the fruits of the spirit of the Ruach on it. So there's times I have to be like that. I'm not sorry when I have to be. So Yahushua has given me a different threshold. I guess it's different for all of us what we can handle. And so that's mine. But yeah, okay. So because that's okay. Okay, I see Juanita's. I see Juanita's little comment there. Okay.
Yeah, as long as you don't go into, I mean, some people will try to have seances and call
I know that.
their dead family members or somebody out of the grave, and they think they can achieve something like that. And through demons, because that's what you're doing when you have seances. You're trying to get demons to to talk to your ancestor for you, and relay messages back and forth, or have them come up and possess somebody and talk to you through some kind of mediator or something,
Necromancy.
Yeah,
It reminded me of
weird stuff. And all that is illegal. You're not allowed to do anything like that. To know your ancestry, I don't see a problem with it, man. As long as you don't worship it, as long as you don't try to communicate with the dead, it's just to keep track of your lineage. Is obviously not evil because it's in Scripture.
Okay. Well, now I'm glad I waited. I'm glad I waited on that. Okay. Well, now I'm clear.
But that's all the knowledge you need is, so and so begot so and so, and so and so begot so and so, and so and so begot so and so. That's all the knowledge you need. Other than that, you don't do nothing else with it. You know what I mean?
All right. Then I guess I will take another. Then I guess I will take one. And let Yahusha decide what's important out of the information I get. Rather than looking, because the strong man in my life is intrigue. And that's I can tell you right there. Yeah, sometimes the strong man of my life has been intrigue. If something clicks, then I start asking questions, and then I start doing research. But also when you're talking about the whole don't communicate with the dead thing, to be honest, I know I've said this before, or at least maybe I hinted at it. I stopped using my voice memo on this phone on a regular basis because with no prompting, sometimes I hear things that on playback that weren't in real time, and then I know that sometimes there's demons that are trying to sound like charming or getting my attention so that I could ask more, and I know not to do that. So I know not to engage unless, of course, it's to rebuke and cast out a demon. Okay, maybe so, like with Legion, but I stopped using the voice memo for the sake of not being intrigued or letting demons start talking on my phone, because they do that in some ways, and I don't want to, and I know that that's not allowed unless, of course, it's to rebuke and to cast them out. And I'm telling you, like I said, I didn't prompt any of them. If you listen on occasions, they can show up even on playback, even if you don't talk. That's happened before. I remember recording, the outside of my program, one of them, and I heard nothing but cars, whatever, just to experiment. Then when I did on playback, I heard water running from somewhere, from one of the buildings, on playback. I'm thinking that why did I not hear that in real time? So that's why. So yeah, you gotta just watch yourselves, especially in that world. It comes and goes even when you don't expect or want it to, but don't let it don't try to gain information, from it. This reminds me of the Witch of Endor. I forgot which book it was, but the Witch of Endor, how she regretted and she was tricked into raising somebody from the dead. I think it was Saul. It was raised from the dead, and he got mad about that and issued the warning that particular person who he asked the woman to do that with, that he would die in battle the next day, and he did. So watch. It doesn't mean that we'll die the next day if we do that, but I think Yahusha's and Yahuwah are merciful on their terms that bring them honor and esteem, but don't try it.
Yeah, I'd say avoid anything to do with any of that. You don't need all that. Just I would be have blinders on, just keep focused on Yahuwah. Think about good things. That's the best way to do it. Start wandering off thinking about bad things or weird things or wicked things. I mean, I have a tendency kidding around sometimes about Bigfoot and stuff like that, but I probably shouldn't do that either, but it's one thing to talk to people with experiences, though, than about things that are what we would consider a phenomenon, because these are the type of things, unless you've seen it, you don't believe it. No matter how many people tell you, there could be 1,000 people there telling you that they saw something, all credible witnesses, but unless you see it yourself, you don't believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you talk to them and you ask questions and about what they saw and everything. That's just curiosity. When you start trying to find answers by going to demons, using tarot cards and Ouija boards and seances and crystal balls, or going to a witch or something to try to get her to tell you something about it, or a palm reader or something. And now you're wrong. You've crossed the line. See what I'm saying? So there's a line there for sure.
I do know, but
someone about an experience I don't see is wrong.
I can tell you that all I remember is being witness to a few people in my family, or I'm trying not to mention the names, be too specific.
Oh, don't mention any names.
Huh?
Don't you mention any names now.
No. Anyway, but I know that there's a few in my family, growing up, in the 80s. I was at least witness to them using the Ouija board, and I was sitting right next to them. I don't remember playing it, but I remember being witness. I don't remember anything about what came out or what kind of question was asked, but I do remember that it's made an impact on my family. Even no matter how many times I rebuked those spirits that came out of it, which means I think that those very people who did it themselves by choice, they need to ask Yahusha into their heart and rebuke those spirits and repent and be sorry for the choices they made, even in their ignorance.
Yeah. All right,
anyway,
Bruce, I'm going to get off of here, brother. I got to do that. Would be back up tomorrow doing this at 12 o'clock noon.
All right.
On same place, different time.
I'll be there tomorrow. I do get your notifications. I don't have anything set up on my phone that give me any kind of a sound for the notifications. I fall asleep until maybe the first 15 minutes of this broadcast. I've been kind of in and out, for different, so it makes no sound. I'm not sure why it says that I can make little sounds for it or set it up. I don't know how to do that, but as long as I'm awake for it, I'm sure I will be, and I see it pop up, I'm gonna click on it, like I did tonight. I'll shut up now, because otherwise there's too much in my head.
Sometimes, let me share this. Sometimes you're better off not knowing things, because sometimes when you get stuff planted in your mind, you can't get them out of your mind,
True.
And it haunts you the rest of your life. You're better off sometimes not seeing stuff, not hearing stuff, not knowing about anything, just being ignorant, And sometimes you're just better off not knowing, So if it's something that's not something you've seen, it's secondhand or whatever, maybe just better to leave it alone unless you see it. Once you see it yourself, then you can relate to everybody else that says they've seen it. But if you haven't seen it yourself, then you always have that optimism, a little bit of a standoffish, unless I see it, I'm not going to believe it type attitude, So sometimes we're just better off not having things in our head. Just leave it alone,
Well, my mind's like a flashing or a panning camera sometimes, depending on the subject. But when there's a set apart way of looking at things, it doesn't faze me. But usually when my mind works like a panning or flashing camera, like today, going to the movies and watching Minions for the fun of it,
Yeah.
Well, there was a few things. It was cute and funny for all ages, including me. I was laughing at parts of it, but there was just a few things that Yahusha just hurt my stomach, and Yahusha was warning me, nope, this is all against them, like a little dragon, and there's a couple, and even the all like ultimate power and that sort of thing. No, who was the one that ultimate power?
Yeah, just think about good things and
Yeah.
keep your mind focused on Yahuwah, man. That's
Yep.
the best way to do it. All right, I'm off of here.
All right. Have a good night.
Thanks for coming on, Bruce. Appreciate it. Always like talking with you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming on the chat room and chatting up a storm there and sharing your thoughts with us. And I hope that everybody will be on tomorrow on Sparking You Yah, 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on this channel at noon tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to study Acts. Open to everybody. Everybody and anybody is invited. So I hope that everybody has a little bit more of a vision now in the times we're living in this era, that it's really starting to collaborate with what's written in Scripture. And we're starting to see these things starting to materialize now. So we're getting really close, I think, to the end of the latter days. There's only 2,000 years. That's it. After Yahusha came and he died and was resurrected and ascended, from that point, we only got 2,000 years. He came on the fourth day, or the fourth millennium, the 4,000th year, and did that stuff. So we only have 6,000 years allocated to mankind. So we know that on the Gregorian calendar, the one we use, most of us use now, is that Yahusha died on year 28 AD. 28 AD. So if we add 2,000 years or 2 days, remaining days, or 2 more millenniums to that, because he died in the fourth millennium, the end of the fourth millennium, or the 4,000th year, right? That means 2,000 years or 2 days added to that, 6,000. Okay, so 2,000 added to 28, 4,028, according to the Gregorian calendar, that brings us into the year 2028, his projected year of his return, possibly 2030, because of the errors in the Gregorian calendar. All right, so I hope everybody can see the signs of the times that's coming, and we all got a better picture now of what's coming and what to look for and what we should do when we see it happening. We definitely don't want to faint. All right. Okay, so see y'all tomorrow. Remember to stay in love with Yahushua HaMashiach. So long, beloved of Yahuwah. So long, Nazarene.